Now that the 2019 season is over, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have big decisions to make at several key positions. They won't admit it, but General Manager Jason Licht and Coach Bruce Arian's biggest decision is by far at the quarterback position. So I ask this question to you, Buc Nation. What do you do with Jameis Winston? What's good, Buc Nation? It's your Rude Boy, and thanks for tuning in to Tuff Bucs. In today's episode, we'll be going over the conundrum of what to do with quarterback Jameis Winston. But before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. And for you real Tuff Buc fans out there, click that bell icon so that you get real-time notifications on when new videos drop. So with that, let's giddy up. The 2019 season was an up and down roller coaster ride for Buc fans thanks to the erratic play of Jameis Winston. It's been like this since the team drafted him first overall 5 years ago, and now that he's a free agent, the Buccaneers front office have to decide on what to do with famous Jameis. Like with all major decisions in life, Jason Licht and Bruce Arian have to weigh their options to see what else is out there. Personally, when I'm at a crossroads, I like to sit down and write out the pros and cons of a situation so that I get a better look at the bigger picture. So that's what I'm going to do today. Let's start with the pros. Jameis Winston is by far the best quarterback the Buccaneers have ever had in their 44 seasons in the league. And if you disagree, check your stat sheets. In 2019, he broke his own single season record in passing yards with 5,100, which is 8th all time. Only 4 other players have surpassed him in that category, and that being Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Ben Roethlisberger. Now that's some good company to be in. He also threw for 33 total touchdowns, second behind the league MVP, Lamar Jackson. Even when his star receivers were out due to injury, Jameis was still producing at a high level. Why separate yourself from a player who can produce? And I know what you're gonna say, the interceptions. But we'll get to that later, so pump the brakes and relax, okay? Yeesh. Winston is a natural leader and has the respect from the entire team. At the beginning of his career, he's had some unusual ways of motivating the team, but under Bruce Arians, he's scaled back on eating W's, but was still a vocal motivator. His resilience and ability to bounce back from the many awful plays he's had throughout his career is something the rest of the team can learn from, I guess. Winston's toughness, in my opinion, is second to none among quarterbacks. He had to endure a lot of pressure in his 5-year career, and it's actually impressive that he hasn't had any major injuries. But when he does get banged up, he gets right back up and continues to fight on. In the latter part of 2019, he suffered a fracture in his hand and tore his meniscus in his knee, but would continue and play the remainder of the season. Now that's some toughness, folks. During the offseason, Winston went under the laser with LASIK surgery to correct his nearsightedness. Maybe that was part of the reason why Jameis was throwing it to the other team this entire time. I highly doubt it, but at least he's considering every option to improve his game. You gotta respect that. And finally, if you re-sign Winston, you'll have continuity at the position and won't need to start fresh with a new quarterback. Starting with a new quarterback equals new growing pains, something that the Bucs and Buc fans ain't got time for. As everyone knows, Bruce Arians coaches with a no risk it, no biscuit philosophy, a style of play conducive to turnovers no matter who the quarterback is, because he likes to take shots down the field. His system isn't the easiest to adapt to, as pointed out by Carson Palmer, who struggled his first year with Arians but played his best football in his second year in the system. Palmer believes that Winston will cut down on his turnovers in year 2. Now let's move on to the cons. The biggest bugaboo in Winston's game is turnovers. In particular, interceptions. Last season, Winston became the only quarterback ever to throw for 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Now let's be clear, Arians and a lot of other people share the sentiment that not all of those interceptions were Winston's fault. With a combination of tipped balls and wrong routes from his receivers, you can easily argue that maybe half of the 30 interceptions were on Winston. Regardless, that is still way too many. Those interceptions put the Buccaneers defense in some precarious positions that would result into points for the opposing team. Not only that, Winston threw a total of 7 pick sixes last season. That's roughly 49 points he just gave to the opposing team. In his career, Winston is averaging a pick a game, and that's an alarming number, folks. To put it into perspective, Winston has more interceptions in 5 seasons than Aaron Rodgers has in his 12-year career as a starting quarterback. You're simply not going to win games, especially close ones, when you're giving the ball away. Now this next one is a touchy topic, but the off-the-field issues. I've gotten a lot of gruff from people in the last 5 years because of this. While at FSU, he was accused of shoplifting crab legs of all things from the local grocery store. Whatever. He claims that the employee gave it to him, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. What I do have an issue with are the unsettling sexual allegations he has on record. Let's start with the vulgar comments he shouted while standing atop a table at FSU. I'm not going to repeat it because quite frankly it's embarrassing, but let's just say if you're a parent, you'd be shaking your head too. His second incident was a sexual assault allegation while still at FSU. He was never charged, but instead settled out of court with the accuser. You would think Winston learned his lesson as a pro, but he didn't. In 2017, Winston was being investigated for allegedly groping a female Uber driver in 2016. He was ultimately suspended by the league for the first 4 games of the 2018 season. Winston, that's just not a good look, bruh. I know. This video took a turn there, but I do think Jameis has changed for the better as a person. He's a married man with a child now. That in itself matures a person. Okay, maybe not all the time, but in this case, I think it did. As a journalist, it's my obligation to bring this stuff up because we can't forget about the dumb stuff this man has done in his college and professional career. It's definitely a red flag, but again, people can change. What are their options? Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, and Ryan Tannehill are the top free agent quarterbacks in 2020. And while it would be nice to lure the GOAT, TB12, to Tampa, I don't think that's going to happen. Ultimately, I think he stays in New England, as evident in his Hulu ad during this year's Super Bowl, where he literally says, "I'm not going anywhere." Whether that means he's not going anywhere from football or from New England is up for debate, but my money's on the latter. I also don't think the Saints will part ways with Drew Brees, as that man means way too much to that city to just walk away and go somewhere else. He just announced that he will return to football in 2020 for at least 1 more year, and all signs point to him staying. Ryan Tannehill just took the 6th seed wildcard Titans to the AFC Championship, and I expect Tennessee to re-sign him after an incredible year. Teddy Bridgewater is an interesting case. Now that Brees has announced that he'll return, I can't imagine Bridgewater coming back to New Orleans as a backup, especially when he went 5-0 last season during Brees' injury. I'm sure he's looking for a place that offers a starting role, and could Tampa be a good fit? I'm not sure. He's viewed as more of a game manager and not a quarterback who'll take deep shots down the field, something that's required in Arian's system. However, out of all the options in free agency, I think he's the most realistic, but who knows if Tampa is on his list. Heck, I'm gonna contradict what I just said earlier and say that he may very well just stick around 1 more year with New Orleans as a backup and take over as the starter in 2021. But that's a risky move for him, say if the geriatric decides to return again in 2021. And that leaves me with Phillip Rivers, who recently moved his family to Florida, and speculation out there is that the Bucs are interested. I'm sorry, but Phillip Rivers is not an option for your boy. You can't go after a veteran who is marred by the same turnover issues as Winston, albeit not as much, but at least Winston's younger and has the ability to scramble and extend plays, something Rivers isn't as good at. And in a league where it's crucial to extend plays, signing Rivers would be a downgrade as opposed to an upgrade. Enough said. The Buccaneers have the 14th pick in this year's draft, and there are at least 5 other teams ahead of the Bucs that are looking for a quarterback as well. So unless Justin Herbert from Oregon, who Bruce Arian loves, somehow falls in his lap or they trade up, I don't think they're going to be drafting a quarterback in the first round. I think it's time for the Bucs to consider drafting an offensive lineman with their first round pick. That doesn't mean that they won't draft a quarterback this year. There are still some options in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, players like Jordan Love from Utah, Jake Fromm from Georgia, Jalen Hurns from Oklahoma, and Jacob Eason from Washington. With all that said, I think the Bucs will in fact draft a quarterback at a backup capacity and groom them to potentially become a starter if things don't work out with famous Jameis. In terms of Jameis, there are two options. The first option is to slap him with a non-exclusive franchise tag that's projected at $26.7 million. Evaluate his performance for one more year under Bruce's system, and if he doesn't improve and it's more of the same, then move on from him in 2021. The Bucs will have until March 5th to tag Winston. If they don't go this route, then I think they should sign him to a 2 to 3 year deal and talk him down to between $20 to $23 million a year. I'm sure that Jameis wouldn't be too pleased with either of those options, but honestly, he made his bed, now he's gonna have to lie in it. Free agency begins on March 18th, and only time will tell what happens with the Bucs and Winston's situation. So what do I think the Buccaneers will do? A lot of Buccaneer fans are not going to agree with me on this, but I truly believe the Bucs are going to re-sign Winston. For how much and how long is up for debate, but it's reported that Jameis is looking for a long-term deal for around $30 million a year. Come on, bruh. There's no way in hell any organization is giving this guy $30 million a year. Yeah, he produces a lot of offense, but he also helps the other team with his turnovers. He has to be a team player and take less, especially because of all the free agents that the Bucs are trying to re-sign. The Bucs currently have the third most cap space in the league with $88.9 million, but as Bruce Arian has stated, keeping the defensive front is the highest priority and not the quarterback. And that's our episode for today, folks. On our next episode, we'll be taking a look at the Buccaneers' free agency situation outside of Jameis Winston. Like, comment, and subscribe. So until next time, Buck Nation, y'all know what to do. Keep firing them cannons.